Hello and welcome to my walkthrough of the FreeCodeCamp curriculum. Right now we're just gonna do the responsive web design certification. So I already did a little bit of this course, but I just want to do a complete walkthrough in case, you know, you have trouble in any part of this curriculum. So I'll be blowing through the first parts of it pretty quickly. They're pretty easy to understand. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the code that defines the structure and content of a web page. This is your code editor where you'll write HTML. Find line 1 in the editor and type this text. Welcome to FreeCodeCamp. So on the web page editor, or the code editor, it's right here. This is the line 1. Alright, step 2. This introduces the header element, which is represented by H1 and then with these brackets. Uh, so you just want to put, so all you have to do to complete this lesson is just to put this text inside of a header element. So this will be the beginning of the header element, and then this slash represents the end of the header element. Alright, for step 3, it just wants you to again write some text in the editor. Full stack curriculum. I might have misspelled something. You always have to type things the exact way that they tell you, or else it will say it's wrong. So let's see. Full stack curriculum. So the H1 header, as this is right here, you should only use one per page because the H1 element is supposed to be like, I guess, the main title. So, something important, it'll make these big bold letters. So the H2 header, which we're going to put this text into, it makes it a little bit smaller. Alright, step 5, just add some text. Yeah, I don't have really the fastest typing speed. Alright, the P element is just simple text. Oops. You just use the P element for simple text like this. That makes it small like this. So as it says right here, there's 6 head elements from 1 to 6. As you can see, the bigger the number. So as you can see here, there's 6 heading elements from 1 to 6, and the bigger you go, the less important or less bigger it will make the words. So just add an So just add a header element with the text introduction. HTML. Now with the P element, there's only one, so you don't have to put like P1, P2, P3. It's just all P. Alright, you're getting the hang of it. Add another H3 element. So CSS is used to, as it says right here, style a web layout. So with the CSS file, you could like make the background blue, put little boxes around your words and stuff like that. And it says, as you can see right here, it says JavaScript makes your web page interactive. So you can add things like buttons, where things so you can type into the website, you know, stuff like that. And fun fact, JavaScript is what was used to make Minecraft. I always forget to add the little slash. Alright, so build a curriculum online workshop. I think we just completed that, and now on to debug. Okay. Debug CamperBot's profile page. CamperBot is trying to build a profile page. They asked a friend to look over their code and they said it has some errors. Your job is to fix all of CamperBot's errors so they can continue building their profile page. Complete the items in the user stories below and click run the test to see if you fix all the errors. User stories, CamperBot is trying to use a heading 2 element, but the element does not exist. Fix those bugs to correct the second level heading element. So I guess he's trying to use a heading 2 element, but the heading 2 element, all you need is just H2. This is not a real element. So that's fixed. Alright, problem number 2. CamperBot is trying to add 2 paragraphs with PP, but those don't exist either. Fix them so they can correct paragraph tags. Alright, just remove a P, and that is an element. PP is not a real element. PP. Problem 3, CamperBot is using an H3 element for the background and interests subheading, but it has a syntax error. Spot the issue and resolve it. Okay, Okay, so the syntax error is that he put the slash at the end when it should be at the very beginning. And I think that's all the problems. We're gonna check the code. Oh, you should have a paragraph element with a I enjoy right here. Oh, I see. He did this twice. Okay, I thought he only did it once. So now it should be fixed, right? Alright, there you go. So we did this, we did that. Now on to understanding HTML attributes. What role does HTML play on the web? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Is a markup language for creating web pages that you can visit and see content like paragraphs, heading, images, and videos. Here's a small example of HTML elements. Try editing some of the text in the editor and see the changes update in the preview window. So main heading element is right here, and paragraph element, we've already seen it. So you can add something like this. It'll show up here. HTML represents the content and structure of a web page through the use of elements. Most elements will have an opening tag and a closing tag. Some of these tags are referred to as start and end tags. In between those two tags, you will have the content. This content can be text or HTML elements. Here's another example of a paragraph element. Change the text in the editor to say I love coding and see the results in the preview window. I love coding. Both opening and closing tags start with the left bracket and end with the right angle bracket. With the tag name placed between these angle brackets, while HTML tag names are case sensitive. Wait. Okay. Both and closing tags start with a left angle bracket and end with a right angle bracket, with the tag name placed between those angle brackets. While HTML tag names are case insensitive, it is widely accepted convention and best practice to write them in lowercase. Here is a closer look at the opening and closing paragraph tags. So, case insensitive, I'm guessing it means that the P can be lower or capitalized and the element will still work, but usually you want to keep it lowercase. What distinguishes an opening tag from a closing tag is the forward slash placed immediately after the left angle bracket. Some HTML elements do not have a closing tag. These are known as void elements. Here's an example of an image element, which is a void element. So a void element means that it does not need a closing tag. You could just put this element, this image element, and you do not have to add a, slash image element. Notice that this image element does not have a closing tag. It does not have any content. Void elements cannot have any content and only have a start tag. Sometimes you'll see void elements that use a forward slash before the right angle like this. While many code formatters like prettier will choose to include the forward slash in void elements, the HTML spec stats. Oh my god. While many code formatters like prettier will choose to include the slash in the void elements, the HTML spec states that the presence of the slash does not mark the start tag as self-closing, but instead is unnecessary and will have no effect of any kind. So putting a slash in a void element will have no effect, and it will just work like normal. In real world development, you will see both forms, so it's important to be familiar with both. If you wanted to If you wanted to display an image, you will need to include a couple of attributes inside your image element. An attribute is a special value used to adjust the behavior of an HTML element. Here's an example of an image with a src attribute update. Here's an example of an image element with a src attribute. Update the value of the src attribute to this link, and you will see the image change to two cats peacefully sleeping. So the image is the element. This image is the element. This src is the attribute. So we get this link and we change the value of this attribute from this picture of a cat to this picture of a cat. The src attribute is used to specify the location for that image. For image elements, it's good practice to include another attribute called the alt attribute. The alt attribute is used to provide short descriptive text for the images. Here's an example of an image element with a src and alt attribute. Try breaking the image by updating the src value to this link. You'll see the image disappear and only the alt text show. So the alt attribute is good for, let's say, the person who wants to access your website, their device for whatever reason cannot display the image that you intend to. You can put this alt attribute and then it can put that instead, so at least the person will know what would be there. So you might be wondering if HTML by itself is enough to build a website. Well, the answer is it depends. If you're building a small practice project that only displays text and images, HTML alone might be sufficient. However, if you're creating a modern professional website, you will need to have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is for content structure, CSS is for styling, JavaScript is for adding interactivity. A good analogy for this is HTML, CSS. A good analogy for this is to compare HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with a complete building. HTML represents the blocks, concrete, and irons that make up the walls, its foundations that makes the building strong. CSS represents the interior and exterior design that makes the house look beautiful, and JavaScript represents the electrical, water, and JavaScript represents the electrical and water system that ensures uninterrupted access to water and electricity. So what does HTML stand for? It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Which of the following is correct syntax for a closing tag? This one, because it has the /. Which of the following is a valued attribute used inside the image element? src. What are attributes and how do they work? An attribute is a value placed inside the opening tag of an HTML element. Attributes provide additional information to the element or specify how the element should behave. Here is basic syntax for an attribute. Element attribute equals value and then closing tag for the element. The attribute name is followed by an equal sign and a value in quotes. The value can be a string or a number depending on the attribute. A string is just words, basically. Words that don't turn that words that don't equal another attribute or element. This first example uses the href and target attributes. The href attribute specifies the URL of a link to the target attribute. Bleh. This first example uses the href and target attributes. The href attribute specifies the URL of a link, and the target attribute specifies where to open the link. Enable interactive editor and change the href attribute to this value. Enable the interactive editor and change the href attribute value to this value. Now, when you click the link in the interactive editor, you will see the FreeCodeCamp homepage in the new browser tab. So if I press this, So if I press this link, it will open in the same tab. Oh my god. Without the href attribute, the link would not work because there would be no designation. Without the href attribute, the link would not work because there would be no destination URL. So you must include this href attribute to make the link functional. The target equals blank ensures that the link opens in a new browser tab. You will learn more about this in the target attribute in future lessons. Other common attributes are the src and alt or alternative attribute, which is used to specify the source of an image and provide alternative descriptive text for the image respectively. Enable the interactive editor and change this link to this link, then change the alt to this description to this description. Okay, so this changes the image, and then we change the alt text. Similar to the href attribute, the src attribute is required because it specifies the image file to be displayed. The alt attribute is not required, but it is recommended for accessibility purposes. Accessibility means making sure that everyone, including those with disabilities, can use and understand things like website, apps, and physical spaces. You will learn more about accessibility in the upcoming lessons. Some attributes are a little unique with their syntax, like the checked attribute. Enable the interactive editor and try clicking on the checkbox in the preview window to see it alternate between between checked and an unchecked state. In the following example, we have an input element, which is the type attribute set to checkbox. So input is the element, and the attribute is type. The attribute is type, and its value is set to checkbox. So you can see here. Inputs are used to collect data from users, and the type attribute specifies the type of input. In this case, the input is a checkbox. You will learn more about how inputs work in the upcoming lessons. The checked attribute is used to specify that the checkbox should be checked by default. The checked attribute does not require a value. It is present. The checked attribute is used to specify that the checkbox should be checked by default. The checked attribute does not require a value. If it is present, the checkbox will be checked by default. If the attribute is not present, the checkbox will be unchecked. This is known as a Boolean attribute. You will learn more about Booleans in general when we get to the JavaScript section. Enable the interactive editor and try removing the checked attribute from the input. You will see that the checkbox is no longer checked by default. Removing the checked attribute from the input. There are several common Boolean attributes you will encounter in HTML, such as disabled, red. There are several common Boolean attributes you will encounter in HTML, such as disabled, read-only, and required. These attributes are used to specify the state of an element, such as whether it is disabled, read-only, or required. Duh. Here's an example of a text input element that is disabled by default. Ensure that the interactive editor. Here's an example of a text input element that is disabled by default. Enable the interactive editor and try clicking on the input element in the preview window. Now remove the disabled attribute from the input element and you will see that the input is no longer disabled by default. You should now be able to click on it and type inside the field. HTML has many attributes that can be used to customize the behavior and appearance of elements on a web page. Understanding how to use the attributes is essential for creating interactive and accessible web content. Over the next few lessons, you will learn about more HTML attributes and how to use them effectively in your web development projects. Which of the following is an example of a Boolean attribute? Disabled. What is the role of an attribute in HTML? Attributes provide additional information to help define the behavior for an HTML element. Which of the following is correct syntax for a Boolean attribute? Input and then type equals checkbox checked. I think it's this one. I'm not sure though. Oh, let's go.